Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Anchorage Ice Tigers Draft to Glory franchise mode here in NHL 23. So, in last episode, we had another offseason, and we pretty much kept the team mostly together. We did make a little bit of changes because of cap space, and obviously, we decided to let go of Jeffrey Bouwmeester on our defensive core just because of his asking price. He was trying to get $12 million, and we only had like $28 million in cap space, so we let him walk. We also decided to let go of Novikov just because we did have a young goalie in the system coming up instead. So this is going to be our team for one of the last seasons of this franchise mode, with Parrott dropping off quite a bit still, and also with Claxton dropping off. But you can see we got Parrott, Keith, Hartnell, Darby, Eliason, and Bobkov, Vico, Jansevsky, and Gamble, and a fourth line of Glencross, Claxton, and Loins. I actually might swap Jansevsky and Eliason because Jansevsky's more offensive, I think. So we'll just do that for now. From a defensive standpoint, we got Danner and Klepis, Tulipov and Smith-Pelly, and Howes and Cunningham, who's going to make it. This guy was only a top 6 defenseman. Now we drafted in the second round, but he's somehow developed into being something okay for us on the blue line. So there's our defensive core. And goalie-wise, we're running on Spencer Pusher for maybe the last year of his career here in Anchorage. Who knows? We'll try and bring him back probably, but we have him and Jorgen Hedin. Depth-wise, we got Sabrin, Addison, and Lucic. So it should be an interesting season. I don't know if this is a playoff team. We do definitely have the goal-scoring ability because Parrott could still score goals even though he's an 80 overall. We do have Hartnell who could score. Darby occasionally could score goals. Vico normally scores consistently. So I do still like the looks of this team, but I don't like the fact that we're almost in a sense where I think our team is just dropping off quite a bit, and I feel like definitely our window is probably closed on winning another Stanley Cup, but we might still be able to make it into the playoffs or miss the playoffs in these last few years. But it's really tough to kind of understand where our team is heading at the moment. But yeah, I am kind of scared just because this might be the last time you get to see Parrott score. He's had tons of 40-goal seasons. He's only 30 goals away from hitting 800 in his career, so there is a good chance he could hit 800 goals at the end of the year, which would be awesome. And then also like Claxton, this might be his last year as well, and he's had a very good career for a second-round pick. So we'll see if those guys end up finishing up their careers in this season or what. And I'm excited about some of the youth movement on this team because obviously like guys like Vico are still only 28, but you you also have guys like Jansevsky, who's in his third season now, Leeson, who's still relatively young into his career, Loins as well, Glencross is somewhat young. So there is definitely a good like movement of future players for this team, but you can definitely see our age is starting to hit us with guys like even Danner, who's 32 at this point. So it's like almost the last-ditch effort for this team to try and win another Stanley Cup, but I honestly don't think it's going to happen. But if it does happen, that'd be great. But at the same time, if we could just wrap up the careers of Parrott and Claxton, that would be a good way to almost end our series. Obviously, I will go all the way till the end of this 25-year period, even if they retire at the end of this season. So before we get into the season simulation, let's take a look at where our former players in Bouwmeester and where Novikov signed, and then we'll start up the season sim and see what this team is made of, because I honestly have no idea what is in store for us this year. Are we playoff bound? Are we going to just barely miss? Are we going to be absolute trash and get the first overall pick? Who really knows? So we'll find out what ends up happening with that. But there is Novikov. He signed with my Ottawa Senators, of course. Signed there for 2 years at just under $2 million. So we could have brought back Novikov, but at the same time, I thought it was a good chance to give Hedin a backup role. So yeah, Novikov is going to get his chance to maybe become a starting goaltender there in Ottawa. I don't know if he's a backup for them or not, but we'll definitely take a look at their lines in a little bit. So there's Novikov. And then Bouwmeester, who was just asking for so much money, is an 83. Then again, he did have some really good years the last few years, so he definitely deserves some good money. But $12 million, I don't really think he was worth that. So let's search and see where Bouwmeester went here. He went to the Washington Capitals. And he's getting $13 million for the next 3 years as an 83. Jeez. I don't know if he's really worth that type of money. I mean, 3 years in a row where he's had like 40-plus points, which is good. He's coming off almost 60 points. So I can't fault the man for getting paid. But at the same time, I don't think he was worth that type of money. Because if we were to re-sign him, we wouldn't have been able to re-sign probably all of our RFAs that we had because some of them got qualified by some other teams. So there is that. Let's quickly let me go to the unsigned players on our team at the moment because I am curious if there's any unsigned players that I could give contracts to yet. It doesn't seem like it because I didn't actually take a look at that in the last episode, so I wanted to make sure there was nobody that was ready for the AHL. Because Foot is a 67 at 19, but I don't think that's really ready for the AHL just yet. So we'll probably wait a year on some of these guys, even though most of them won't be able to make it to the NHL before the end of the series. But there's that. I do want to take a look at where Novikov is in the Sens lineup. I also want to take where Bouwmeester is in Washington's lineup, just so we can kind of see where they are at the moment. Oh, that's Lawrence Bird. I thought that was going to be a Larry Bird or something. It's funny. So Bouwmeester is getting some top 4 ice time with Shattenkirk in Washington. And if we head over to Ottawa, Novikov is going to be the backup goaltender to Raphael Couturier. So he's going to be backup again, which is unfortunate, but who knows, maybe he'll eventually find himself out as a starter in some teams. But he might be on a team that makes the playoffs, depending on if this top line carries Ottawa. So that's kind of nice at least. Like I said, I don't know if we're going to be a playoff team or not, but we'll see if this team can do it. It's a good mix of like very old veteran type players and also some good young guys. So we'll see what Parrott's able to do in potentially his last year. See if he's able to hit that 800 goal plateau, because I've never had a guy hit 800 goals in a franchise mode. So it'd be nice to see if he was the first. And then also Claxton might be able to hit he should have hit 700 assists this year, which is great. So there's that. I think we're ready to go. Let me just double check our lines here quickly. Yeah, I think we're pretty much ready to go on this stage. Yeah, I think we're ready to go. Is Parrott going to drop off a lot? Or is he going to stay the same overall? Who knows? I honestly am really scared if this guy retires because he's been our best goal scorer for sure. Consistently picking up at least 40 goals. He doesn't have a lot of over 47 goals. Like, he never has a lot of 50, 60 goal seasons. But 40 goals a season is still good enough for me for sure. And his playoff numbers have been really good too. So let's see what Parrott could do next to Keith and Hartnell for maybe one last ride. We'll see what happens. So let's take this a bit slower since this is a season where we don't know what's going to happen with this team. Let's do 1 month at a time and see where we're sitting standings wise and player stat wise, that type of thing. Should be interesting to see what some of the youngsters do that are into our lineup this season end up doing. Like how Hayden is as a backup goaltender and then how Cunningham is on the blue line. Those are a couple things I'm really interested in. Damn, what the heck is that month? We're definitely going to fall apart though, and just watch. Because there's no way we just randomly start 9-1-1 with this type of a roster. Ricardo Hartnell is almost a goal a game right now, and he's over point per game, so maybe our top line is just killing it right now, but I still don't understand how our team is this good through our first 11 games. Like, we're definitely due for a really bad month coming up, or maybe in the next 2 months. So that's a good way to start off the year. Let's see if we can keep that trend going. But I still definitely do not feel safe with the way our roster is situated. But you never know. You never know with this game. It could just give you a Stanley Cup with a mediocre roster. Or it could give you no Stanley Cup with an all-star studded roster. Yeah, this is definitely a worse month. We've lost a couple games here in a row. But we are still winning quite a bit too, which is a great sign. And we are now 16-6-2, so we have fallen to second place in our division. Actually still tied with the Sharks, but offense seems to have dried up a little bit because Hartnell's not as much over point per game, but he is now at 25 points, 24 games, 13 goals. He did have 8 goals in the first 11 games, though, so he has slowed down, which means Parrott might be scoring considering they are line mates. Currently, we are still one of the best teams in the league, but obviously it's still really early to tell if this team's going to be playoff bound or not. Because we could have just one really bad month, and that takes us completely out of the race. So let's go one more month and see what we're looking at currently. There's another loss, back-to-back losses where we don't score a single goal. That's a bit disappointing. And there's 3 wins in a row now all of a sudden. Yeah, this is a really weird season. Like I said, I don't really know what's going to happen if we're going to be a playoff team or not. Like, we're definitely struggling a bit since our start, but we're still winning a decent amount of games when we have the chance to. 22-11-4 now. And that's almost at the halfway point. Keith is now point per game. So yeah, that top line's definitely doing well. We are currently 4 points back of the Sharks. We are currently 6 points back of the Rangers. Yeah, we're literally probably like a top 5 team in the NHL still at this point. Maybe a top 10. I don't really know exactly, but maybe we're just relying on our top line. But I know there's definitely some underlying problems, but I'm not going to address them because at this stage we might as well just keep it 1 month at a time, see how this team is. Well, let's go to February the 1st, see how we do in this month. There's another win over Seattle, a loss in overtime. Like, at least these losses in overtime are going to give us some points. But at the same time, they're still losses. And who knows, those add up. But we're definitely not doing as good as our 9-1-1 start. Like, we'll still probably end up making the playoffs, it seems like, at this rate. Because we're almost at 30 wins, and we haven't even hit the deadline yet. And our top line's under point per game now, so I feel like we might have good depth scoring, but maybe, yeah, I think we're just a good depth scoring team, I feel like, at this point. I don't know if our defensive play is that good. I don't know if our goaltending is that good. I don't want to take a look at stats till the end of the season, so we have played like one of the least amount of games in our division, so we're in a good spot. Just got to keep on getting wins and getting at least to overtime or shootout to get those extra points if we're able to. So let's continue and go to the next month pretty much, as Vancouver has fired their head coach. There's another loss. So win 7-1 over Detroit. Like, we have like random bursts where we score a lot of goals in a game, but we also have a lot of bad defensive games, it looks like, as of recent. So definitely like a lot of negatives from the season, but a lot of positives as well. And now we're on a big losing streak here right before the deadline. That's not good. 4 or 5 games in a row where we lost pretty badly. And now we're in the territory where we're in a wild card spot. Yeah, I might have to make up some line changes here. If we want to get to the playoffs, that is, because I don't really want to be a team that just barely misses out on the playoffs, because if that happens, that is not a good spot for us. So in the Western Conference right now, let me see. Teams that are outside of the playoffs about to have 64 and 65 points, which means they're 4 and 5 points behind us. So we're in a still a pretty good spot, but at the same time, definitely things have fallen apart here a little bit. So let's go ahead and just make a couple like defensive changes maybe to see if that helps out anything with the defensive core. And goalie-wise, we'll keep obviously the same. Forward-wise, let's make some random changes here like that and see if that helps out. Claxton is dropped off a lot. He's down to a 74 overall, so he's not even an NHL player at this stage. And Parrott's pretty much like a depth forward at this point, so maybe that's why our team's all of a sudden taking a hit, because our 2 legends are kind of falling off a lot. So let's hope that they have a little bit more left in them to at least push this team into the playoffs. But if we fall apart and miss the playoffs, so be it. Let's keep on rolling. Let's go another month and see if this team's able to turn it around after those little line changes. Because I think right now for offense, for goal scoring, we're going to be relying on Vico, because I feel like Parrott's probably taking a step back. I really hope that he could hit 800 goals, but I honestly don't know if he's going to hit 30 goals this year. I didn't take a look at his stats yet, obviously, but never know with this guy. Never know. We did end that losing streak right before the deadline, so that's a good sign at least. Let's go to the second here so we can start up a new month. And yeah, pretty much the fate is in our hands if we want to be a playoff team or not. We just got to make sure that the Wild and the Golden Knights do not catch up to us. We do have a game against Vegas on the 17th. We do not have any more games against the Wild, it looks like. So just got to keep winning against divisional opponents and Western Conference teams especially. So let's go to the end of this month and see if we could get into the playoffs here, as the Jets have also fired their head coach. Interesting. There's 3 wins in a row since the deadline, but then there's a loss and another win. Yeah, now we're starting to play a little bit better, especially than last month. But we're still in a weird spot. Yeah, we're now all of a sudden winning a lot more games than we were losing, I think. Maybe we're around 500, but at least that's still probably good enough. We are still in the wild card spot right before April the 1st at 40, 29, and 8. How much up are we on those other teams? We're up 7 points on the Golden Knights. We do have 5 games left. They have 6 games left. And then also the Blackhawks are just outside of it with 82 points. So we got to watch out for the Blackhawks, the Wilds, and the Golden Knights. So if we could get a couple wins together here at the end of the season, we'll clinch our playoff spot. If we lose all 5 of the games rest in the season, there's a good chance that we might miss the playoffs. So let's do 2 games at a time. So Dallas and Edmonton, we lose 7-6 and we win 4-0. Like, look at that. We played terrible defensively in one game, but we did have good offense, and then we played good defensively and pretty solid offense in one game. So very inconsistent, but at least we do get a win out of those 2 games. And we are still in a wild card spot. It has not been dropped yet. The Blackhawks have jumped into a playoff spot, knocking out the Coyotes, who we are playing right now. So this is a pretty big game, because if the Coyotes win this game, they will tie us in points with the exact same amount of games played. Or actually not tie us in points. It'll be 2 points back of us with the same amount of games played. So yeah, we got to win this game here and knock out their chances, because I don't think the Golden Knights, they could still technically make the playoffs with 91 points. But technically, if we win this game, they can't make it. And if the Coyotes have a chance to make it, their most amount of points is 92 points, I think. Which means technically, if we win this game, I feel like we clinch a playoff spot. Got to get at least 1 win here in these last 3 games. So let's see if we beat the Coyotes here. This is the big one. And we do win it 3-1, and that has clinched us a playoff spot. So we are making back to the playoffs with a declining roster in terms of overall, which is very interesting. We do lose the last game of the season, but we did have a 3-game winning streak a little bit before that. So 43, 31, and 8. Not a great season by any means, but we did make the playoffs again. So there is no complaints there. And Ricardo Hartnell led the team in points with 83 points in 82 games. Another 40-goal season for him. Pretty impressive. He's been another underrated player in this series, I'd say. Him, Keith, Claxton, those type of guys. So in terms of the entire league, where did we finish? We finished 11th best in the NHL, which is a major surprise considering we kind of just barely made it in a way. Goals for per game on average, we were actually tied for 9th, I think, in offense with Calgary and San Jose. 3.32 goals per game. Goals against per game wise, we were around mid-table as well. So we're not that great at everything, which is okay. We're kind of just average, but who knows, maybe that's what we need to win a Stanley Cup. Power play was 17%, which is kind of also mid-table, so another thing in that category. And then our penalty kill was 81.9%, which is kind of lower half, it looks like. So our penalty kill wasn't that good, but oh well. 10 short-handed goals, though, this year, which is one of the best in the entire league. So that's at least a positive. 23, 15, and 3 on home ice, and 20, 16, and 5 on the road. 5, 5, and 0 in our last 10 games. Let's take a look at our player stats and see who did what. So starting off with our centers, Ricardo Hartnell, 83 points, 41 goals, 42 assists to lead the team in the point category. He's been, like a very underrated player, over 1,000 points in his career. Like, if he wasn't playing with, like, Parrott and stuff like that, I don't know if this guy would be in the Channel Hall of Fame, but he definitely is up there for one of the better players in this series. His potential has dropped off as well, so he might be one of those guys that retire in the last year of this franchise mode, or he might retire if there was another year after this franchise mode ends. Derek Heath, 73 points this year, plus 20, 35 years old, and he's dropped down as well between 86 and his top 6 potential now, so he's getting close to being a retirement caliber player as well. Over 1,000 assists in his career, almost point per game. He's been very, very solid. Hopefully he has a good playoffs ahead of him. Avery Parrott, though, hit 40 goals this year, which means he did hit 800 goals. Only 61 points, which is one of his lowest, I think, of his career. But another 40-goal season, he's up to 810 goals. And that's likely where he's going to end off his career, my guess. I don't think he plays another season after this. But that was his lowest point total since his 4th season in the NHL. That's crazy. Leeson hit 50 points this year. Wow, I'm surprised by that point total on him. That's pretty good. He got some power play time, so that kind of helped out a little bit. And then Claxton had 34 points. Yeah, Claxton definitely dropped off a ton. He's definitely retiring this year. There's no question about it. Usually this guy's really good offensively, but look at that potential. AHL bottom 6 potential. Yeah, he's definitely retiring. Unfortunately, he's not going to hit 1,000 career points, but he does have over 700 assists. So that's really good. Hopefully he has an okay playoffs ahead of him, but he's definitely retiring this offseason. No questions there. Loin, 17 points. Not really much, but it's decent enough for a bottom 6 guy. Vigo hit 38 goals this year. And he is still signed for a few more years on that cheap deal. Vigo's been a very consistent goal scorer. I do like his performance. 220 goals in 492 games. He is 28 already. He's got exact top 9 potential, which is interesting now. So I don't know if he's going to be really one of those players that develop any higher overalls, because he's stayed kind of like an 80-81 for his entire career. So Bobkov had 55 points, but was a minus 18. Oof. That's not good. Oh, and he's only signed for 1 more year. Damn, we're going to have to re-sign Bobkov this offseason. That's going to be pretty expensive, but if Parrott retires, at least it'd be affordable in that sense. Gamble hit 50 points this year. That's something I did not expect. His ELC does come out to the end this year, though. He's only 22. I forgot about that as well. But that's good for Gamble. Darby only had 45 points this year. And he was a minus 20. I should have probably not paid Darby as much as I did, but oh well. Oh well, yeah, he's definitely dropped off a lot from his 80-point day to a 45-point season a few years later. And then Jansevsky had 39 points, not too bad. Right wing wise, Glenncross had 34 points. Solid. I'd say some solid depth scoring on this team. Defensively, Ryan Danner had 64 points, a minus 8, so he's not going to win a Norris because of that. But 64 points this year is pretty good. He's actually been a pretty solid player in this series, considering he was another second-round pick. Smith Belly, 25 points, plus 22, like that. Cunningham, 24 points in his rookie year and a plus 8. That's as a guy that's listed as a depth defenseman. That's pretty good. He didn't have any power play time as well, so if we give this guy power play time, maybe he'll grow into something. Tulipov, 17 points, plus 24 is really good. Howe, 16 points, plus 23, and Kleppis had 10 points and a minus 6. He also had over 100 penalty minutes, so he's pretty aggressive for a defenseman, but it is what it is. And goalie-wise, Pusher was not very good, but Hayden in his first season was really good. 16-6-1 with a 912 and a 257. I think I might start Hayden in the playoffs because of those numbers. Because, yeah, Pusher really didn't do that well this year. He hasn't been that good the last 3 years in save percentage. So, I think I might give an opportunity to the kid to start the playoffs. Might as well. Let's take a look at the entire league for points. And see also who we're going up against in the first round. Holy crap. So Calgary, who we knocked out last year in round 1. Lukovic had an insane season with 108 points, 57 goals. This guy's actually an insane player. Like, it's unfortunate we won't get to see this guy play out his rest of his career, but he has been really good for the Flames. A lot of 50-goal seasons already, and he's only 25. Cote, 106 points, Janssen, 103, and Pedersen, 102. A couple other 100-point guys, but not a whole lot. Best goal scorer was Lukovic with the 57. Let's head over to Selke candidates, see if anybody of us is up there. Takeaway-wise, in terms of good face-offs, you're probably looking at Clarence Knighty in Calgary again, with the 2,662 face-offs taken and a 56% on the draw, pretty much. 131 takeaways. Yeah, it's probably his trophy to win for sure. Best defenseman this season in terms of points was Lawrence, the former Dallas Star in Nashville, now 75 points and a plus 47. Yeah, he's definitely winning the Norris. Nightingale also up there for the Flyers. Ruidel for the Rangers. Danner was number 4 in points, which is nice. Minus 8. And former defenseman of us, Morgan Denny, is also up there in points, as he usually is. Kind of wish I held on to him in a sense. So there is that. We then head over to the goaltenders. The best goaltender for wins was Pettinen in Nashville, 43. Most shutouts by a starter was Potvin in Chicago. Best save percentage by a starter, Pettinen in Nashville with a 918. Him and Couturier in Ottawa. And best goals against average by a starter is Pettinen in Nashville with that 245. Any goalie goals this season? No goalie goals. Most goalie assists, Potvin in Chicago with 5. Best rookie this year for points was Perrin, the former second overall pick. Yeah, second overall pick last year with 63 points. Blum also up there. Martin and Ali Brust, all eclipsing 50 plus points. So there is that. Let's take a look at who we're going up against in round 1, and then that'll be it for this episode. But I don't really know if we have a chance. We're going to be the underdogs the entire playoffs if we want to go far. We're going to be taking on the Nashville Predators in round 1. We have definitely played Nashville a couple times in the playoffs before, but I'm not sure on how long it's been since we played them. Let's take a look at what these Preds look like. So, top line of Miles Paxbu, Matty Nieminen, and Nikolai Denisov. This Nieminen guy is pretty good. They must have signed him as a free agent. Yeah, that's a really solid top line. Second line has Vic Auld, Dwayne McEachern, and Rory Mangone, who's dropped off a lot. Former Vegas Golden Knights guy. I do remember him. And a third line of Mark Lambert, Rick Mackey, and Tristan Martin. Former top 6 prospect that was drafted 14th overall. They also have Murray Grabowski, Ola Modine, and Roy Olchuk. So this is a pretty good team for the most part. They actually have a solid top 9, I'd say. And their fourth line is a legit fourth line. They do have a little bit of weakness on the left side, but it is still pretty solid. McEachern has a 76 on that second line. It's probably only because he was a really good player at one point. Kind of like if we had Claxton as our second line center. That's my guess, but he did have a good year. Defensively, oh yeah, we have to go up against Devin Lawrence, who just won the Norris. Again, we've played this guy multiple times when he's been with Dallas in the playoffs. He has not been far in the playoffs before. You definitely got to shut him down. They also have Chapman, Ford, Loktionov, Markov, and Yell. That defensive core is not good, though. So they have a good offensive core, I'd say, but defensively they have the best one of the top defensemen in the NHL at this point in time, and Chapman, who's not bad. But the rest of these guys are very fringe NHL defenders. So they must have a good goaltender, my guess. And yes, they do. Oh yeah, they have the Petnin guy, who probably just won the Vezina. So we got to pull off an upset against him. He has been a pretty consistent goaltender the last 3 years. A lot of shutouts, good save percentage, good goals against. It's interesting how he played in Columbus for like a year in between his 2 times in Nashville, though. He decided to come right back. And then their backup goaltender is Lee Zinger, who's also a medium elite goaltender that Nashville drafted. He's not been as good, but he's still a solid enough backup goaltender. Depth-wise, they have Kopstalls, they have Mishenko, and Bannock. Or Bannock. I don't know how it's pronounced, but there is that. I don't really know who has the upper hand. Obviously, they have a couple really good players, and we're kind of like a team that's aging quite a bit and really quickly. So I feel like they technically have the upper hand because a lot of their guys seem to be still pretty good overall-wise, but the age is definitely catching up to our roster, so that's probably going to make a difference. But let's take a quick look also on how they did during the regular season compared to us, and then that'll be it for this episode. So I'm curious on what has been their best stats during the regular season. They were the second best team in the Western Conference. We were the 7th best team. They scored 3.54 goals per game. We scored 3.32. So they scored 18 more goals than us. They also allowed 22 less goals than us. Their power play was worse by 0.8%. That's kind of a major surprise. I think with that skill level and that offensive output, their power play would have been better. And their penalty kill was much better than ours by almost 5%. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't really know who has the upper hand in this category because we have definitely the more experience, I feel like, on our roster. But they technically have the better overalls with a couple of guys like Nieminen and Lawrence, so, and also Petnin in between the pipes. So it should be an interesting series regardless. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Anchorage Ice Tigers Draft to Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the first round of the playoffs against the Nashville Predators as we look to make it back to the second round and hopefully beyond that because once again, we are running out of time in this series. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.